Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips podcast with your geeky host, Lindsay Wheeler, where we talk about everything from death, preparing for your future through estate planning, life, the occasional breakup, entrepreneurship, general nerdery, and of course travel, snowboard, and always wine. Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips with your host, Lindsay, and today we're going to talk about dual income, no kids, also known as the DINK lifestyle. There is a new growing trend, I don't know if it's a growing trend or if it's just a progressive trend, of that people don't want to have kids anymore. Whether that's because of society, finances, personal choice, whatever it is, this is becoming more and more prevalent as we progress on, selfishness, whatever you want to call it. That more and more people are getting married with each other and not having kids. So that's why we call it DINKs. It's a dual income, no children. A lot of people really enjoy this lifestyle, if you will, because traditionally at that point they make more money because their resources aren't going out to raising children, as we know, that are very expensive. I think the average now to raise a child from birth to 18 is around $300K. Yeah, that's a lot. So a lot of people are opting not to have children and coordinating resources, and now basically that $300,000 that they would have taken for 18 years, they're now investing in themselves, whether that means having animals as their children, traveling, living a lifestyle that they enjoy without being interrupted because of the raising of children, whatever it is. But it's definitely a growing trend that I have seen lately, and primarily with our estate planning. So it's very important because when you pass away and you have children and you don't have anything in place, we have a thing called intestate succession. That's the state's plan, if you will. So what happens if you pass away and you have children with nothing in place? It typically will go to your children, obviously. That makes sense, right? It goes down the lineage. You have that inheritance. What happens if you don't have children? Where does it go? So your spouse, sure, but there's also separate property involved with that. Where does that go? So that's where estate planning is very important for people who have decided not to have children, because the state's plan becomes a little bit more different than it just going to spouse or down to children. It may have to go up to parents or laterally over to siblings at that point. So avoiding all that, so maybe you don't want it to go to those people, having that estate plan is super important if you don't have children in that way. So your wishes are fulfilled and your stuff goes where it's going to go. Right? Makes sense. So with the creation of your estate plan, if you're dual income, no kids, and you're not going to follow the state's plan, is where do you want your stuff to go? Do you want it to go to siblings? Do you want it to go nieces and nephews? Do you want it to go to your parents if they outlive you for some reason? Do you want it to go to a charity? Do you want it to go to friends? You have way more control over where you want your things to go with an estate plan with no children as you would if you were a parent, because naturally you probably want that to go to your children. So your money can go where it wants to go, and your hard work and what have you can go where you like it to go, whether that again is to charities, you can do a legacy, you can really make an impact with your stuff as opposed to just raising children. Also, having something in place is super important. If you don't have children, you're that dual income, no children, as this name is, of course, your spouse will be the one to manage that, but you guys are probably traveling together a lot. What happens if the plane goes down? What if you guys are both in the car accident? And then at that point, who's going to manage your stuff? You don't have children through that intestate succession or heirship, if you will, to come in and take care of those things for you. So having an estate plan is very important of just who's going to manage your stuff for you if you're not available to. Either you're incapacitated or you passed away. Think about that. If you don't have children to step in, who's going to do that for you? Because oftentimes your parents are probably going to pass away before you, theoretically, and then what's left? Who's going to manage your stuff? You don't want the state to have that, or your uncle or some weirdo that you don't know, or even just the state themselves to come in and have to manage your assets for you. So making sure that you have your estate plan in place and naming that successor trustee or your manager to take care of those things for you is very important. This also flows into your powers of attorney. Who's going to make those financial decisions for you guys? Who's going to make those medical decisions for you guys? If you guys, as a married couple, because it's dual income, no kids, are unable to advocate for each other. Again, you're in that car accident together, you're in that boating accident together, the plane went down and your spouse has passed away or whatever it is, or they're incapacitated. Who's making those decisions for you guys to make sure that those things, your finances are taken care of and your medical wishes are fulfilled for you as well? So being in that dual income, no children genre, if you will, or decision making is great. You have a lot of freedom. You usually have much more assets and flexibility about that disposable income. But the disadvantage of that is that we don't have the state's plan in place for you if you fail to do something. So it's very important for you to then get that estate plan in place and to make sure everything is taken care of for you. Another important consideration is that if you are a dual income, no kids, DINK lifestyle, is making sure those beneficiary designations are listed on there, whether that's your estate plan or a responsible adult that you want them to have those things, maybe a sibling, maybe a niece or nephew, or even a charity that you've listed as that beneficiary designation are on your accounts, your investments, your banking, your checking, your brokerage account, so they have the accessibility for those assets. And again, it doesn't get locked out and has to go through probate and that court process and the court's plan or the state's plan. Another important thing that you might have to consider if you're a DINK is what's going to happen to you if you're incapacitated or you're elderly and are unable to take care of yourself. Traditionally, our children were going to take care of us. That sandwich generation where you're also raising kids, but now raising your parents as you will. You don't have those children to then take care of you, right? So who's going to take care of you medically, financially, making sure that you have long-term care or whatever. So having those things set up in advance is very important, where you're going to go, making sure that you have those insurances in place or your assets through your estate plan that are going to pay for your care and your well-being until you pass away. So today's wine talk is an interesting varietal from the Sierra Foothills. This is not from the Sierra Foothills. The wine itself is from Sierra Foothills, but the grape itself is from Italy. It is a Tiroldigo. It's a 2016, it's an Italian varietal, super interesting, a little bit different. It's from the parent of Syrah, if you will. So it's got, even though it's Italian and the Romans did it traditionally, it's got a little bit of French influence, as most wines, of course, do. So nice wine as well. This might be a Friday night drinker, not so much a Wednesday nighter. So questions about this, let me know. So to wrap up, if you have a DINK lifestyle, high five, high five. No children for you. You're living your best life. However, with living that best life, you have to make sure that your estate plan is in place and these considerations are in place. Just because you don't have that succession, that intestate succession, if you will, through the courts and through the government, the state's plan, if you will. So making sure that you have that estate plan in place for not only when you're not here, but your incapacity of who's going to make those financial decisions for you, who's going to make medical decisions or advocate for you, long-term care, where are you going to go if you're sick or infirm, if you will, and who's going to pay for that. Charitable considerations if you don't have heirs to leave that to because you decide to not have children, and making sure people have access to your assets as well because you don't have that kind of successful lineage, if you will. And of course, when you have that, go ahead and make sure that if you do get your estate plan in place, double check that every 3 to 5 years because some of your successors or your heirs may not be with us because maybe they're living the similar lifestyle to you, or you have listed other people who are older on those and they're no longer with us. So always make sure that you check out your estate plan every 3 to 5 years, or if you have questions of getting your estate plan in place or want to get it updated, let me know. I'm at yourstateplan.online. And of course, when you think of death, think of me. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you found value, please like, subscribe, and share. And be sure to follow me on all the socials at Sips and Tips with Lindsay. And of course, you can always go to my website, sipsandtipswithlindsay.com, to find more information about estate planning, business, snowboard, travel, and of course, wine. As always, we have to get the legal stuff out of the way. I went to law school, so you don't have to. However, we have to read the special disclaimer that I am not a practicing attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not offering any legal advice in any content or any episode. All content is for your information and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for seeking your own legal advice from your own attorney or other professionals such as a CPA or financial advisor. I cannot give legal advice and do not offer any legal services or legal advice, but I do offer some fun and educational content for you to enjoy.